Welcome, everybody, to another brand new episode of It's My Wrestling Podcast, Indie Wrestling Spotlight, my brand new series where I'm hoping to shine a bit of a spotlight on some of the hard-working, as far as I'm concerned, hardest working wrestlers in the entire industry. Even if I can just get a few eyes on them, I'll feel like I've done my part. Of course, as always, I'm your host, Chris Dees. Please, before I get started, hit subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube and hit follow if you're listening on any audio platforms. Today's guest is a man who basically lives down the road from me, which I didn't realize until pretty much like a few minutes ago. He is the sexy Cocoa Bear, which are words that I didn't think I was ever going to say on this podcast. The intergalactic sex symbol. He is, of course, the one and only Mr. Chocolate Thunder. How's it going, buddy?
I'm very well, thank you, Chris. How are you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, mate. Not too bad at all. It's what time is it now? 9:05. It's hard doing podcasts in the UK. Everything happens at night time.
Yeah. I'm very much a night creature, so it's fine with me.
To be fair, so am I. But when someone's like, "Oh, can you do it at 11 a.m.?" I'm like, "Yes, let's go. Let's do it as early as possible." So I've got the rest of my day to go. Because by the time I do a nighttime one, it's like straight to bed. I'm like, oh, great. So that's my day gone. But hey, it doesn't matter because I've got the pleasure of talking to you, so I'm more than happy to do it. I want to get right into it. Don't want to take up too much of your time because, like I said, it is quite late at night on a Friday night, and you've probably got better things to do than to talk to me on a podcast. I don't like to ask the same old questions because not to disrespect any of the podcasts, but most of them start off like, "Oh, who is your favorite wrestler?" Blah blah blah. These kind of things. What I want to know is more about like you and what actually led to you becoming a wrestler. Not so like what led to you becoming a fan or your first memories. What was like your pin drop moment? What was the moment where you were like, this is what I've got to do? Was it a match, a moment, a segment, a promo? What was it that made it click for you?
So I guess for me personally, I've always been a Stone Cold Steve Austin fan, to be perfectly honest. He's the guy who I've always looked to and who I've always enjoyed watching wrestling. But I think it had to be like us, The Rock versus Hogan at WrestleMania. It was just one of those matches where it wasn't so much wrestling; it was just the pure storytelling that I really enjoyed, and just the whole. Obviously, The Rock being the icon that he is, Hogan coming back for his first big match, and yeah, it's just the storytelling side of it. I've always been like quite a sporty person and quite like into my fitness and athletic, or not athletics, but like fitness wise.
Yeah.
So I've always thought, you know what, I really at least like to try this and just see how it goes. Finding a school was the difficult part. And then I eventually found one that was like based nearby where I lived. Went down, did my first session, and I was straight away like, yeah, I want to carry on doing this and like give it a go. So basically, to cut a long story short, it was The Rock versus Hogan at WrestleMania.
That's a pretty good place to start.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. Like, man, when I think about that match, which is probably more often than I should, like, I just think of the first like 5 minutes of it where there's no wrestling. It's literally two guys looking at each other, looking at the crowd in slow motion. Like that crowd, that's one of the best crowds I've ever seen in any wrestling.
Yeah, it just goes to show that, you know, I know nowadays people like to see like action, they like to see technical wrestling, but there's still a place for, you know, there's matches where there's not a lot of wrestling. It is literally just almost like a soap opera to a degree. So yeah, it was just really different, and that's the kind of sort of wrestling I like to see. Just something that tells a story as much as like as much as it is a spectacle of like athleticism and, you know, high flying moves and whatnot. That really appeals to me.
Yeah, I don't think we've got many of them left now, really, have we? Like icon versus icon matches, unless somebody. Oh, I was going to say unless somebody comes back, but I don't think there's anybody that can really wrestle anymore from that sort of era. I know The Rock's on the verge of coming back again, but there's not really many like era versus era. That was era versus era, wasn't it? I mean, I don't think we're ever going to see that again unless somebody's a megastar in 10 years' time and then John Cena comes back again, maybe.
Yeah, I think it's just the opportunities now for people outside of wrestling. I mean, you see it all the time. There's always someone in a TV show or something, and you know, there's a lot of emphasis on like health now. So it's one of those things that wrestling is one of those things that you can't do forever. And being a superstar, that I think the Attitude Era is where wrestling really peaked. So that's where you got a lot of those crossover stars and people like, superstars that people would recognize outside of wrestling. So again, your Austins, your Rocks, your Hulk Hogan's, your Macho Man's, and just people like that. That was. I don't think we're going to get a generation like that again, which is kind of sad. But I guess that's just the way it is. That's just the way the business is evolving.
Yeah, there's not many like larger than life characters anymore.
No.
Is there? Everyone's a bit like bread and butter, a bit plain cut. Like it's just
it
stands out really anymore. There are characters, like don't get me wrong, obviously, but there's no like main event going to transcend the sport going out into movies and TVs. There's Roman Reigns, but as much as I like what Roman Reigns is doing now, he is still just a stereotypical heel, really, isn't he? He's not a larger than life heel. So yeah, no, I completely agree with what you're saying. You said something in there about sport, and I get so few opportunities to speak to other British people, to other British wrestlers. So I've got to touch on sport for a minute. Yeah. Please tell me you're a football fan.
I am a football fan. Yes, I am indeed.
Now, I know that you're from Leicester, or based in Leicester, from Leicester. Who do you support?
So this is where I'm going to be really disappointing. I actually am a Liverpool fan, despite being from Leicester.
Okay, well, it was nice interview.
I'll hang up now, yeah.
Why Liverpool? Is it like a family thing? Like grew up around it?
They were just the first team I really gravitated towards. So I remember the match in '95 against Newcastle, the 4-3 where Collymore in the last minute. And I remember watching that live and being like, oh my God, this is incredible. And from there, I was just sort of hooked on Liverpool. So that's where it started. Obviously, I still want Leicester City to do well, but Liverpool will always be my main team. So yeah, I know I get a lot of stick for that. So yeah,
especially like when you say that you're into football and you're from Leicester, people must be like, oh, so you must have been well happy when they won the league then. Like, yeah, it's happy, but like for different reasons. I'm a Coventry fan, being from Coventry, but I don't buy into rivalries and I don't buy into hating other teams. I just haven't got time for it. I haven't got the energy for it. So like I was thrilled when Leicester won the league. Like we're never going to see that again. Let's be honest.
No, like there's definitely a once in a lifetime thing. Like obviously to see them do it was like, again, like you said, you're never going to see it again. I mean, I was in a fairly lucky situation because my partner's mum actually worked for the club, so we got a free season ticket. So I got to see I got to see every home game, got to see them lift the trophy, and they had this parade through the city, and it really was, amongst all the people, you could tell they were like, well, we're never going to see this again. So it's definitely one of those, take advantage of the opportunity while you can. But it's weird you say that, because I know Leicester and Coventry historically tend to have a bit of a rivalry from what I remember. But the Coventry is, we have a rivalry with basically anyone because we don't like teams that are better than us, which generally tends to cover most teams. So we've picked a fight with basically every team that there is, especially in the Midlands. Like, I think above, I probably wouldn't, honestly, not to disrespect Leicester, I wouldn't probably put Leicester in like the top 5 Midlands teams that we hate the most. Obviously, top is Villa. Yeah. Villa. Then it's like Birmingham, probably West Brom, Derby, Forest. Wolves.
Probably, Wolves are in there. There's so many Midlands teams. Especially in the top 3 or 4 leagues now. There's like, even when we were down in League 2, like there were so many Midlands derbies to go to, so many more in League 1. There's loads in the Championship. But like we say it'll never happen again. We'll never see it again in our lifetime. But I went to Wembley about 5 years ago to see us win the Johnston's Paint Trophy, thinking like, I have to go to this. We're never going to be at Wembley again. Yeah. And then literally a year later, we're there winning the playoffs. No, so it'd have been 2 years later to go up to the championship. So you never know. Like I say, I thought that was never going to happen again, and then
Yeah,
can't stop going to Wembley. So
yeah, it's football, bit life of being a football fan, isn't it? You sort of think, this is a one-off, and then you're like, oh, it's happened again.
we're fourth in the championship at the minute. Sorry, any wrestling fans. Sorry, any American wrestling fans who are like, what the hell are they talking about? But yeah, I never get to talk about Cov. I think we're fourth still at the minute in the championship.
Yeah.
Never saw this coming. Like, we barely stayed up last season. We had a really good run at the end that kept us up, and now we beat Fulham just like a month ago, and like we embarrassed Fulham. I think it was 4-1.
Yeah.
Mad. You never know what to expect in football, but hey, thank you for indulging me and letting me talk about football.
Yeah,
really appreciate it. I'm always like itching to talk about football more. Right, let's talk about your character, the intergalactic sex symbol. Tell me about the inspiration behind the character, because there's been lots of extravagant and flamboyant characters over the years, but like I said, we don't have many larger than life characters anymore. So were there any particular wrestlers that you took inspiration from for your character?
So yeah, the whole character kind of grew organically. Is basically an off the cuff remark that suddenly snowballed into this whole gimmick. And then from there I was like, okay, so who can I take from, who can I take bits from and sort of get inspired by? And I was a big fan of Rick Rude when I was younger, when he was active, like his promo style and obviously his persona. So I'd say a bit of Rick Rude. Also, British wise, I watched a lot of Adrian Street, old World of Sport wrestler. For anyone who doesn't know him, he had quite a flamboyant gimmick, and like he'd wear colourful robes. I think he also wore makeup as well.
Yeah, did, yeah.
So that was sort of an avenue I was like looking down. Also, obviously, a bit of Ric Flair, kind of like the pretty boy gimmick, that kind of thing. So it's a combination of a lot of things, and also stuff from outside of wrestling as well. I didn't want to just pigeonhole myself into looking at like influence inside wrestling. I looked at like music. Kanye West was a person I looked at for like sort of persona and a way of speaking, and sorry.
I was going to say Prince as well. There's a lot of Prince vibes there as well. Yeah,
the whole purple, because obviously I wear a lot of purple, so there's some Prince vibes in there as well. And yeah, it's just a culmination of a lot of things that I've took inspiration from, and out of all of it, it's just become Chocolate Thunder.
Yeah. So I wanna touch on something that's obviously a little bit controversial, but it also might not be controversial. It depends what side of the fence you sit on. When I see you and I see the character and the flamboyance and the purple, obviously my mind is drawn a little bit to somebody like the Velveteen Dream. Now, that's obviously a bit of a taboo name. Nobody really talks about him anymore. That's all sudden and that's happened. Did you, like, as you've been out there being this character and as you've been out there wrestling, have you faced any sort of like, not criticism, I think that's the wrong word. Have you ever thought maybe about, like, should you keep doing the character in light of things that happen there? Because they are not carbon copies or anything, but there are similarities. Yeah, I mean, obviously, before everything kicked off with him, there were comments. I had comments from people like, "Oh, you're just like Velveteen Dream," and obviously the similarities were there, like you said, with the kind of attire and the persona. I don't think I should stop, because obviously the allegations against him were quite serious. But I wouldn't say I'm exactly the same as him. No. I'm not quite as, I thought he was quite more of an adult version of me, I would say. Like I do a lot of shows for like family friendly promotions, so I dial it down a lot. You know, I'm not going to be like thrusting my hips everywhere and sort of like giving everyone a show. It's just going to be me being loud and obnoxious, and that's it. So yeah, I can see the similarities and I can see why people would say that, but I wouldn't say we're exactly the same
if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah, you got different styles and personas. It's more just a visual thing, isn't it? That where I think that's pretty much where the similarities end. It's the visual.
And people do that a lot, don't they? Like if they see a tall person who's well built, has blonde hair and a goatee, they'll say, "Oh, that's Hulk Hogan." Or with long dark hair and a dark goatee, they'll say Drew McIntyre. It's just obviously at first glance you're going to say that, but obviously when you look deeper into the character and sort of see my work, you'll see it's really like quite different to Velveteen Dream in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, don't judge a book by its cover, basically, folks. That's the moral of the story. You mentioned something a few minutes ago that I had to ask. You mentioned about when you went and found a local school, local wrestling school, training facility close to where you live. Robbie Brookside, like, doesn't really get much better than Robbie Brookside, does it? Did you spend much time with Robbie? Like, I don't, in my head, I don't know how wrestling schools are sort of like laid out, if they have trainers, if you actually spend much time with the person who owns the school. So like, what was the facility like? What was Robbie like, if you ever spent any time with him?
So by the time I started training, he was in NXT, set up in Florida. So it was his school in name. But yeah, basically it was like a boxing gym that obviously had a massive area with mats, and we could get a ring in there and obviously learn how to do stuff in the ring. We would have like video calls with him near the end of the sessions, and like sometimes we would have to cut promos to him over the phone, which was a really sort of daunting experience when you've got his face like right there in front of you and you're cutting a promo to him, and it's 5 or 6 in the morning in Florida, and he's probably just standing there like, why am I listening to this idiot? So yeah, and obviously he would give us a few words of encouragement and like give us some ideas about like characters and whatnot. So yeah, that was good to have. And yeah, the trainers, obviously there were trainers there to like give us drills to do and sort of learn moves and whatnot. And like one of the trainers from there, his name's Gareth Harris, and he's my current trainer at the school I go to, which is From the Ground Up School of Wrestling in Leicester. And his knowledge and like his mind for psychology and everything wrestling is just like unbelievable. Like he should get way more credit than he does at the moment. But yeah, that was the basic setup.
Yeah, I've literally never seen a wrestling school outside of what you see on the TV, obviously. Yeah. Like, so I've never known like what it's actually like to be in there. I'm always keen to know, what was your first bump like? Like when you took your first bump, were you like, this is for me? Were you addicted, or did you like nearly quit?
So one of the rings we had in that place was a boxing ring, which if anyone who has ever been a boxing ring knows is very, very stiff compared to like a wrestling ring. And we were doing flip bumps and I'd never done one before. I'd watched people do it. So I was like, okay, this seems fairly simple. There's a crash mat in there. So I was like, okay, feel all right, I'll give it a go. Flip bumped and I caught the back of my head on the actual ring on the floor outside of where the mat was. I was like, oh, that doesn't feel so great. But I wasn't put off by it. I was like, okay, when I get this right, it won't feel this bad. But yeah, I wasn't sick or anything, so that's one positive. But yeah, it really is an experience when you do take one. I remember obviously during lockdown we weren't able to train or do anything inside of a ring whilst like the country was under quarantine. Yeah. And then like my first session back, I jumped in the ring. I was like, all right, let's just get this out of the way. It's like ripping a plaster off. Took a back bump and I was like, oh yeah. So that took some getting used to, but yeah, your first times are always an experience, I'll say that much.
Yeah. Yeah, mate, I stubbed my toe like 3 days ago and it's still killing me. So respect to you, because I genuinely, hand on heart, couldn't do it. No, I couldn't do it at all. Like, I get a headache if I just like tap my head off something. I can't imagine what it's like. Is it something that you've got used to over the years? How long have you been wrestling for now?
So I started training in 2015, 2016, and I've been.
It's not that long.
Yeah, it's not. I'm fairly new. I mean, people say, "Oh, it's about 5-6 years," but in wrestling terms, it's not a long time at all.
No,
But
no.
yeah, you do after you've had a match, you do feel sore, and you are slow moving about a bit. But it for me, it's like a good kind of sore. It's like when you go to the gym and you have a really good session and you like aching the next day. Like it doesn't. I don't. Well, I relish it, to be honest. I'm weird like that. I like stuff like that. It kind of makes you feel alive to a degree.
Yeah. I always wonder with independent wrestlers, because like you say, like, you've got a day job. For a lot of indie wrestlers, wrestling isn't their full-time job. It's hard to come by those opportunities. So
yeah,
how hard is it for you to like balance those while also wanting to, like, do you have aspirations for wrestling to be your full-time job? Would, in an ideal world, is that what you'd like to do, or is it more just like, not a pastime, but like something like a weekend sort of thing?
So at the moment, it is a weekend sort of thing. So yeah, my day job takes a priority to a degree. I mean, I'm still at a point in my wrestling career where bookings are a little bit sporadic. So it's kind of, there's a lot of gap between shows. So it's not really something I could make a living out of full time.
Yeah.
Who knows what will happen in the future if I do like get more bookings, or something comes up with an opportunity, then yeah, maybe it's something I can do full time. But yeah, it's just getting that opportunity, I suppose.
Yeah. Were you wrestling more regularly before COVID?
So I would say probably less regularly.
Oh, okay.
Recently I've had a few new promotions that I've wrestled for. PCW and Wrestle Island, I've been to a couple that I've made debuts for. I think I've got another one coming up next year at some point for another promotion. So slowly but surely, sort of, I guess, climbing up the ladder and getting more opportunities.
Yeah.
But yeah, before lockdown, I was pretty much just wrestling for my school's promotion and another promotion in the southwest. So yeah.
Fair enough. No, like I said, it's just another one of those. I don't get to talk to independent wrestlers very often. I know it's a very, very different industry to the big promotions. So I'm always keen to know like how bookings and paying and things like that work. So no, it's interesting. Thank you for opening my eyes to it a little bit. I have to ask about the chase. I don't know how often you get asked about the chase. I know you had an interview with my friend George Booker, what do you call it, podcast, not too long ago. And when I said to him, "Oh, did you ask about the chase?" He was like, "What? I didn't even know he was on the chase." And like, he is kicking himself for not asking about the chase. So yeah, how long ago was that? A couple of years ago, you were on the chase.
Yes, so I filmed the episode not long, 2019, towards the end of 2019. I went down to down to the south of the country. I think it was near London, to film the episode. Yeah, it was a mad experience. Like, to see this, to see a TV set and obviously see everything being filmed, and obviously behind the scenes. You obviously met the new chaser, who is Dara, for anyone who doesn't know, and obviously Bradley Walsh. And yeah, it was just really one of those once in a lifetime experiences. Like, and it was nerve wracking as well. Like, just being put on the spot and having questions fired at you was like quite daunting. And for anyone who's watched it knows I didn't really do too well. Got a few questions wrong that I really should have got right, like saying Dirty Harry was a cowboy was probably something that I'll get mullered. I'll get absolutely slaughtered for everyone who knows me. But yeah, I filmed it back in the 2019, and it pretty much aired a year to the day the episode was filmed. So it aired last year, November. And yeah, it got a lot of. Everyone seemed to say I made a good account of myself, whereas I was like, no, I just didn't. I barely got any questions right. So, yeah, I was surprised George didn't ask me about it. I was almost expecting the question. I was going to say, yeah, I didn't do very well at all, but
Yeah, you'd expect a UK podcast to ask about that, wouldn't you?
yeah.
An American podcast, like, fair enough. They no idea what the chase is, unless they've got it over there. They've probably got it over there by now. I don't know, but yeah, no, I had to ask, and George is kicking himself that he didn't ask. I wanted to ask about Bradley Walsh, actually. Again, for our American fans, I'm really sorry about this. I don't like Bradley Walsh personally.
Okay.
I'm sure he's a very nice man, but I don't. It always seems to me like there's always questions on the chase where it's like a sexual innuendo, something that's set up to make him laugh, and it never seems accidental. It's a bit like this morning with Holly and Phil. Like, everything always ends up being a sexual innuendo, and you just get to a point where you're like, that's like the 50th one this week. These are happening on purpose. So can you let me in on any secrets? Like, are they done on purpose just to trip him up, or does he know about them?
So I can't recall any that were on the show. But yeah, but I will say he seemed like a really nice guy. Like, to be honest, we didn't really get a lot of time with him. It was pretty much, we arrived on the set, we were briefed on like how the show would run, and then we got onto the stage and he came out, sort of introduced himself, and then we literally just filmed the show from there. So like he'd obviously ask you questions in the cash builder, and then you do your bit with the chaser, and that was it. So we didn't really get a lot of time with him, but from like what I was watching, he seemed like a nice guy. He was quite funny as well. Like, because obviously there were questions he'd get wrong, like, or like he'd mispronounce a word, so he'd have to stop and they'd have to film it again. And yeah, he seemed to be really happy with one of the. He said I got a answer of the day, which was a bonus for me doing so badly. I think it was like a football question. Hey. Romanian European football champions, and it was Steaua Bucharest. And he was like, whoa, that's a good answer. I was like, yeah, you need to give me more football questions and I'll do well. So yeah, he seemed all right. I mean, for any American people who don't know who he is, Doctor Who's assistant, the latest one. I
remember him saying that he's not a big fan of like CGI movies and CGI shows, and then the chase was like, you were in Doctor Who, Bradley, what are you talking about? And he's a bit like, oh yeah, moving on. I'm not a big fan of the chase. I watch a lot of daytime TV because I work from home. I prefer Tipping Point. That might be controversial. I prefer Tipping Point. Right, let's bring it back to wrestling for a minute. I want to ask, I've asked quite a few people about this week. I've had lots of guests on, lots of wrestlers on from like different backgrounds, religions, races, and I'm always really keen to, if you're happy to talk about it, like diversity and representation within wrestling and how it's come on over the years. Because from you telling me what your early inspirations were, it's clear that we grew up watching wrestling at a fairly similar age, like mid to late Attitude Era is when I was really getting into it. So for me, a young English white kid, like, I didn't think anything of it. It was just lots of like 20, 30-year-old white guys on the TV. That was it. That's just what I assumed wrestling was. There was the Nation of Domination, which was obviously the most diverse thing out there at the time. Didn't really think anything of it. Like, I come from a pretty wholesome background and community. Coventry, no real exposure to racism or anything like that. So for me, it was just normal. I was like, oh, cool, there's the Nation of Domination. And then as years have gone on, there's been like the New Day, there's been the Hurt Business. There's not been, especially with WWE, I think a lot of other companies are doing it a lot better than WWE until recently. There's not been a great deal of representation over the years. I think at one point, WWE in the mid-2000s had 2 black women in the entire roster across all shows. That was literally it. So for yourself, like, how have you found that getting into the business? Like, because like I say, you growing up, you probably didn't have many chances to see people like yourself on TV.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, I think I was watching wrestling the same time you were around about the Attitude Era, um, and I reckon the only Asian wrestlers I ever saw were Tiger Ali Singh,
Yeah.
um, and that was it really, and obviously Carly later on. But
Yeah.
yeah, it was sort of difficult to kind of relate because there's, like you said, there's no one looking like you, so you kind of, well, I guess I was at such a young age that I was like, I didn't really care. But getting into the business, like I didn't really find any problems or issues.
Okay.
I didn't. I'm kind of a naive person to some degree. Like I don't really think about my ethnicity being an issue.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, 'cause it shouldn't be, because it
yeah,
isn't.
exactly. Yeah, which is exactly a great point. So I've never really saw it as a barrier for anything. Like I never thought I probably shouldn't take up wrestling because I'm Asian.
Yeah.
Like that never really crossed my mind. Um, I can honestly say I've never really had anything negative come of me being an Asian person and a wrestler. Um, I've had a few experiences where I've seen some Asian kids in the crowd, and obviously they've been quite pleased to see me, which is always like a nice feeling, when you see a kid and you think, yeah, they're looking at me thinking, oh yeah, if he can do it, reason why I can't do it. But I've never saw my skin color or my ethnicity as a barrier, and I've certainly not been treated as, I don't feel like I've been treated differently because of it either. But I agree to a point that I think there seems to be a uphill rise in the amount of diversity that is going on in the business. Obviously, like you said, with WWE, we've got champions like Big E, Kofi Kingston's won the belt, Bobby Lashley. Especially within British wrestling, there's a lot of like BAME performers right now who are getting the spotlight, and rightfully so. So I think it's definitely on the rise. I mean, there's probably a lot more work that could be done, but yeah, for me personally, I've never had any negative experiences.
Good. No, that's good to hear. Like,
Yeah,
it's it sounds horrible to say the word normal, but like it is starting to feel more normal now.
yeah,
Like I said, I've never had any issues with it, never had any exposure to it being an issue. No one's ever said to me that it's a racism thing growing up. But like when I see the New Day, like I adore the New Day. I think they're the
yeah,
greatest faction of all time, and that's controversial in itself, but I really do. But when I see them come on the TV, I know it might sound a bit contrived and like I'm bullshitting a little bit, but I genuinely don't look at them and think, oh, there's three black guys. I
yeah,
just look and think, there's three of my favorite wrestlers. And
yeah,
that's how it should be. It's starting to become more normal now, like with the Hurt Business. I'm trying to think who else is on TV, like Sasha Banks, and
yeah.
Bianca
Bianca
Belair.
Belair, yeah,
There's so much more now. Lots of starting to get more Japanese wrestlers as well, like Io
yeah.
Shirai. The NXT UK Women's Champion is Japanese. Their Men's Champion is, forgive me, I think Russian.
It was it. Oh, it was Dragunov, Ilya Dragunov. Yeah.
Is he Russian? I don't know if he might be playing a Russian character, but might be from somewhere else. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure myself, but he's kind of Eastern European.
Yeah, like Ukraine, kind of that sort of area. Yeah,
yeah.
But no, it's becoming more commonplace, and it's great. It's a beautiful thing to see, because back when it was the Nation of Domination, I think it was more likely that people would notice that there were four strong black men in a prominent position on TV.
Yeah, especially the gimmick they were portraying as well. Like
Yeah.
it was quite a like Muslim, almost black power kind of gimmick, wasn't it, when it started out?
Militant,
yeah.
Whereas these days now, like, look at New Day, they're gamers.
Yeah.
They're gamers, they're geeks, they're comic book fans. Like, that's something that people can relate to, and it's something that young black kids can relate to as well. Because I've spoken to a few African Americans this last week, and they've said like New Day have opened the door for kids of color to like get into avenues that they normally wouldn't have done, because they don't feel like they're allowed to be comic book fans, because you don't really see them at conventions. I've been to a couple of conventions, and it is pretty much pasty, spotty white guys. unfortunately. But yeah, no, cool, man. Thank you, Frank. I know it's a bit of a touchy subject. Not a lot of people like to talk about it, so I appreciate your views and opinions on it. Let's look to the future. Obviously, this has been a really crap last couple of years. COVID has obviously had such a profound effect on more important things than wrestling, but obviously as wrestling fans, it has basically, well, for at least the first year, completely ruined the industry, and especially the independents. It just absolutely ravaged all these smaller promotions, even promotions like Ring of Honor, like a big promotion that we've now seen maybe on its way out because of the efforts they went to during the pandemic. So now that I think we're pretty much on the other side. I know there's still some other things going on over here in the UK and boosters and stuff like that, and there's talks of more lockdowns and blah blah blah. But like in an ideal world now, what does Chocolate Thunder's 2022 look like? I know you've said that you're hoping to start taking more bookings and you've got upcoming shows early next year. But what, like, if you were to like fantasy book your next year, what does it look like for you? Is there anything that you want to accomplish in the next year?
So yeah, definitely, as you mentioned, get more bookings for more promotions across the country. A lot of my bookings this year have been in the Northwest, like I mentioned, PCW and Wrestle Island. Obviously, I would like to like reach out to like down south and obviously East and West Midlands. So yeah, just getting matches there. Name wise, I wouldn't mind a match with Gene Money and like also Charles Crowley. I really love their gimmicks and they're very similar to the kind of stuff I do or Chocolate Thunder does. So I would love a match with either of those two next year. But I think the general goal for me is to just get my name out there. I feel like I'm getting a bit of momentum behind me. People are starting to take notice and starting to like realize who I am, and just to spread the word and get my face out there and get a bit more exposure, because I felt like before COVID hit that was starting to happen, and then obviously everything got shut down and it almost felt like I was starting at square one again. But I tried to keep myself relevant throughout lockdown, and post content like all you could do, like contact promoters and just ask about opportunities, and I've been given a few. So hopefully with the new year coming up I can get more of those and get to a higher level than I am currently.
Yeah, man, absolutely. No, I hope it happens for you, man. And come down to Coventry. Try and get in with Kamikaze Pro, man. They are like my favorite promotion that we've got around here. I went to see them a couple of years before COVID hit, so like early, about 4 years ago. And they had a few like local names advertised for the show, and I turned up. Keith Lee was there. Pete Dunne was there.
Wow.
Trent Seven was there. Eddie from NXT UK. I always want to say Eddie Daniels. Eddie Dennis.
Yeah.
Eddie Dennis. Yeah, he was there. Millie McKenzie was there. Like loads of names that have gone on to be noticed by NXT UK. So man, try and get down to Kamikaze, because honestly, like you've got a character, you've got a gimmick that is so rare to find these days. So I think, like I said, the more you can spread your wings, the more you can get noticed. And hopefully, my show might do that a little bit. I don't know how many views this is going to get, but even if it's just a couple of hundred more people that get your name out there, like that's, you seem like a good guy. So I want to try and help spread the word and spread your name a little bit. I'm going to give you an opportunity to do that now. So the very last question that I like to ask by on this independent series is, it's a segment called Putting Yourself Over. So I want to give you a few minutes, basically just hype yourself up, man. Just tell people like what it is that they're missing out by not knowing about Chocolate Thunder, like sell your gimmick, tell them why they need to be paying attention to you. I know we've talked a little bit about where you're going to be, but like what they can expect from you in the near future.
I mean, Chocolate Thunder is the kind of person who is one of a kind. He wears the loudest clothes. He has the loudest mouth. There's no one else like him in Brit West at the moment. I honestly believe, like, you get in someone who just does not give a damn and is just dare to be different, dare to be different, dare to be seen. And you know, I honestly believe wherever I go, I would be the standout name that most people talk about. And it's happened like on shows I've been on. You know, everyone just you see all these like guys, but then there's kids going, "Who's the guy in the purple jacket and the crazy hat?" And that's the impression I want to make. I want to be that guy that people talk about when they're going home, going, "Yeah, the guy with the purple hat and the sunglasses was like straight crazy." But you know, that's the sort of thing I bring to the table, just some a unique element and a unique character, someone who people will remember, and someone who you're not going to see like in many places. It's like a one of a kind attraction, and that's what Chocolate Thunder is, and that's why, you know, I want to get myself out there a bit more and, you know, show people what I'm about, and, you know, show people that you know, I am what I say. I'm unique. I am one of a kind, and I am like someone who you should be taking seriously.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Could not agree more. So before I let you go, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. But before I let you go, where can people find you on social media, and any channels or anything like that you've got?
Yep. So my Instagram and Twitter are Choccy_Thunder, handily both the same handle. I'm on Facebook as well. If you search Chocolate Thunder Wrestler, you'll find me on there. And yeah, hit me up, like my post, subscribe, and yeah, that's where you can find me.
Awesome, man. Brilliant. No, like I say, man, thank you so much. I'm going to put all of that in the about section as well, so anybody can just click those links and just get directed straight to your pages. Chocolate, I feel weird calling a person chocolate, but chocolate.
I've been called all sorts, it's fine.
Chocolate, Choccy, Cocoa Bear, thank you so much for joining me, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. Always nice to talk to a local guy as well. It's been an absolute blast. Guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I hope you're enjoying this Indie Wrestling Spotlight series. If you are, like I said at the start, please hit subscribe. Please hit follow. Really helps me out on the channel to provide more great content for you guys. And I will hope to see you next time on It's My Wrestling Podcast.